Whereas in reality, the single point of failure, Saida, is you and me. And
Mm-hmm.
regardless of whether you are an expert or a noob, if something happens to you personally, who are probably the only person in the family able to handle your, how do I want it, and single sig or self-directed multi-sig, by the way, your coins will be in danger.
Keep 'em cold till I'm old. I don't plan to blow my load. Wallet so blue, if you know, you know. It's better than bonds, better than gold. Finna reap up what I sow. Fit money can't keep up, it gets sold. How many times you been told? DCA's the way to go. Higher highs, higher lows. Every year my network grows. Every day my network grows. Running relays, running nodes. Yeah. Dollar a day's a minimum. Stats, zap sats. Any fear I get, I'm flipping 'em.
So we've agreed to call you Stefan, or Stefan, French way, Stefan.
You can call me as you like tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, Stefan is because I'm half French, half British, and although it spells like in German or in Swedish, Stefan, it's actually French. Okay, the reason why it's Stefan written in Deutsch is
In Deutsch,
because I
yes.
was born in Italy in a period when my parents would travel a lot, so they basically opted for the easiest name to pronounce, to write down, and so on and so forth. So in the end, it's like an easy password, something like that.
Stefan. And
Yeah.
Smith is, I guess, from your British side then,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So my father is half British, half Irish, and some
Wow.
with Spanish blood as well there. And my mom is playing French, although looking at her nose, you could figure out that in the 15 or 1600s, the Arabs went up from Spain to the south of France, and she's
Of
from the
course.
south of France. So there might be something there as well. But yeah, I have the French and British passports, and I live in Italy now.
So how many languages do you speak?
I like to say I have my A languages and B languages, the A level and B level. French would be my langue maternelle. Then
Okay.
I was born in Italy, so parlo italiano quasi come un italiano, insomma.
Quasi.
And
Oh,
and then
very
English
nice.
because Smith. So I could say I've never lived in England since I spent all my time on Twitter.
Yeah.
In the end, everybody learns some English there. So, and then Spanish. I mean, well, my wife is from Colombia, so I do
Oh,
speak some
sweet.
Spanish as well. En ik heb in Brussel gestudeerd, so a little bit Flemish. And ik heb,
Oh, that was Flemish. Okay.
ja, en ik heb Betriebswirtschaft in München ein paar Jahre in Bremen gelebt. So I speak some German as well, but languages are not like the bicycle. So if you don't, you know,
Hmm.
practice, you tend to lose them. So I would say Italian, French, English, and then something else.
I did 3 months of German with Rosetta Stone many years ago, and I think I retained. I don't even know if I'm saying it properly. Die Katze ist auf dem Tisch, like the cat is on the chair or stool or something.
Yeah, I remember, was ist das? Das ist eine Pfeife.
Yeah, yeah,
Eine Pfeife? Ja, eine Pfeife. That was
yeah, yeah.
Rolf und Gisela. That was like in the 80s or something.
Well,
Yeah.
they were still doing the same thing. So it's very nice to meet you.
Oh, great.
International man of Bitcoin mystery, I guess. That's with your background and all the languages you speak and, the different cultural influences that you have going on in your life. How did you get to Bitcoin, especially with such a colorful background?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm in my early 50s and I have 5 children, so I don't know how many Bitcoiners are in that category. And so basically in 2020, I started trading on eToro during COVID.
Ah, yeah.
And since I had a very fiat background of 20 years in corporate, I worked in a big I work in L'Oréal in
Okay.
marketing and then in a big paper mill, an Italian paper mill, in marketing there again and international sales. I really I've had basically hardly ever heard of crypto Bitcoin before 2020. Maybe, a couple of touch points, but really a title on newspaper. So nobody, for example, ever approached me saying, Bitcoin, is going to change the world, and I dismissed it. No, not even nothing. So when I started investing on eToro, because you could copy portfolios, so I know that 75% of investors lose their money. So I decided to copy the successful traders and so
Of
forth. I
course.
didn't know
Yeah.
anything about anything. I bought a couple of books like Rich Dad Poor Dad and stuff like that. And and in eToro, as you may know, you have commodities, you have mm, currencies. I mean, you have stocks, of course, and you have crypto. At that time, there were maybe 20 crypto or something like that, including Bitcoin, of course. And I didn't even look at them. But then I just noticed they were hyper volatile, and I just
Hmm.
thought, how strange. It's a
Yeah.
different world. Like it obeys different logics from the standard trading world. So I fell in love with vabbè, with the Cardano guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, he was so, because he's up, he's mad, he has a lot of issues, of probably even mental ones, but he
Because
knows how to
he wears
explain
that thing on
stuff.
his head, right?
No, yeah,
Um,
this is just a picture. I don't know. Anyway,
okay.
to make a long story short, after like 6 months of trading, like 100% of my portfolio was crypto. And Bitcoin was inside of it. And of course, eToro is not your keys, not your coin. So I was completely oblivious of all of that. And by November 2021, I ended up being right too early, meaning that now I understood that Bitcoin would have changed the world a little bit like the internet back in 2000 would have changed the world. The internet bubble built up on that, expectation.
Yeah.
And so I basically, okay, I took control of my Bitcoin. So because from eToro, strange, many people don't know that you can actually withdraw your Bitcoin
Okay.
from eToro on a wallet. It's a lousy wallet, by the way. Anyway, it's like an intermediary step to full control. And I used most of my Bitcoin as collateral for to borrow, and that was November 2021. So you can
Oof.
imagine the timing.
Yikes.
Why? And you could say, why did you take this decision? It was because of Plan B, meaning it was because of me, because I just
Plan
listened
B,
to.
not the stock to flow model
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah,
real.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Because if this guy is
Yeah.
wrong and the plan and the stock to flow is not anyway, he happened to uh, a little bit like this latest guy, Sanjay, I would call him. He forecasted 3 months in a row, not
Yeah.
one, not two, but three in a row, the perfect price at the end
Yeah.
of the month. So I just fell into it. Then
I
the
remember
narrative of
that.
100K built up, and I say, okay, since we everybody knows that is gonna get there. I'm gonna take a loan with, and I got
No, 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 no.
liquidated with a good and a nice chunk of my Bitcoin. So, like many people, I have now fewer Bitcoin than before, but still, it's just part of the journey. So,
College tuition, we call it. That's college
exactly,
tuition.
exactly.
Very expensive.
No free lunch and so forth. Yeah, yeah, that was. But still, I'm grateful I did it because now if I hadn't made that mistake, maybe I wouldn't be a toxic maxi by now.
Shout out to the Orange Manufacturing Group. They helped me with my logo design, and you know that I'll be ordering their premium hardwood sign and lightning keychain. Accessories are curated from a selection of durable traditional materials built to last. Use the Geyser Fund link in the show notes to take advantage of their trust minimal process. Or to save 5%, go to omg21btc.com. That's omg21btc.com and use code AAB21Q.
Because I think that most toxic maxis had their painful experiences, like their religious experience, as Lawrence Lepard would say. So now I became even more radical because of that. So that's why
Yeah.
now my main activity is at the Bitcoin Advisor, where we help people not lose their Bitcoin, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it became a life mission,
Yeah.
because understanding Bitcoin is something, but not losing it is also paramount, because number go up
Yeah.
without freedom go up won't help you, very much. So
Exactly.
there you are.
I'm glad you shared that story because I think that so my daughter was born in 2019, October of 2019. So she's still sort of lumped in the group of COVID babies because, everyone was at home, like she was very coddled and stuff. But in terms of like Bitcoiners, I would say that 2020 breeded a batch of COVID Bitcoin babies.
Okay.
Especially with the whole stock to flow model. Everyone was listening to podcasts. Plan B was on so many podcasts. I think he was on What Bitcoin Did with Peter McCormack. I think he was also on the Bitcoin Standard podcast with Saifedean. I don't know if you remember, like Willy Woo as well. He was on a bunch of podcasts back then, and the focus was like trading big time. I have a
Yeah,
background.
maybe not necessarily. I mean, I remember that Plan B had a plan, which is uh, buy buy 6 months before the halving and sell 18 months after the halving. And he shows that it actually works. So I would agree that as long as the Fourier cycle exists, it can work. But now that the adoption curve is hitting, I think, the beginning of the vertical part, where the new participants are the only one that had not been participating uh, until now, which are nation states,
Yeah.
which tend to be huge, of course, which tend to be price insensitive, and which tend to huddle. So I'm not sure that those Fourier cycles will no, three green dots, one red dot. I mean, humans are humans. So greed and fear will always be there. But if you have entities which only mission, let's say, is to stack and huddle, let's
Yeah.
see. Maybe
Let's
the
see.
liquidity cycles again will dictate everything, but we'll stay humble, stack sats, that's for sure.
Exactly. I am risk averse. I used to work in oil and gas, so there were fields in the Middle East, in Iraq. I traveled there a few times, in West Africa, and I just saw from experience, you think everything is fine and then something could happen. And if you are not privy to any sort of, I don't know, agenda that an entity with like a lot of bargaining power has, you may think that you know, or you may think that you have a level of certainty, and you really don't. And so that experience kind of like informed my vision on trading. I see a lot of models coming and going and stuff, and they look fantastic on paper. They can model very easily, but they do not take into account humans and irrational behavior. And when I say irrational, I'm referring to, I shouldn't say irrational. I should say like an objective or incentives that the retail market just doesn't know about. And so you think everything is fine and then you can get rug pulled. And with
Exactly.
Bitcoin, it's like, yes, there's the fiat aspect of it, number go up and stuff, but there's also the real aspect of it, which is actually trading with other plebs. You know, you can decide on your sat price for whatever it is. It could be for graphics, it could be for a t-shirt or whatever. And so that's like my safe space kind of thing, trading these models and stuff. I leave it to the experts. If you guys, if you make a lot of money, fantastic, that's great. But I'm on the stay humble, stack stats, and, just live a regular life kind of
Yeah, I
track.
mean, exactly. When your denominator becomes sats instead of fiat,
Yeah.
life becomes so peaceful. You
Yeah,
know,
it
is
does.
that how many sats do I have? Okay. Will I have more sats tomorrow than yesterday? Well, I'll do my best in order to achieve that.
Yeah,
And
totally.
of course, we still have to live inside. We still do live inside, maybe outside the matrix, but inside fiat land.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot. I mean, it would be a bit, not completely honest to say that we don't give any damn about the
Yeah.
fiat price,
Yeah.
because especially if you live on a Bitcoin standard like I do, at a certain point, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
And so this is where maybe you start observing the borrowing, using your Bitcoin as pristine collateral and so forth, with new instruments that exist now,
Yeah.
that are maybe safer and maybe more serious, less rug pullable, where your collateral maybe is in a multi-sig, where it's not going to be rehypothecated and stuff like that. And I think that this space is maturing very, very rapidly.
Yeah.
And now that Sub 121 was repealed,
Mm-hmm.
banks will start doing that as well. So the legitimacy will hit, will it's I mean, it will only increase from here.
Yeah, I totally agree. So earlier you said that you've got 5 kids. Congratulations. That is not easy
Congratulations to the mom, especially. Yeah, thanks.
to uh, I have one, and already I'm like, wow, this is a lot. So 5, congrats.
I can tell
Um,
you something, Saeed. It's not financial advice,
mm-hmm.
but I think that two children are easier to manage than one, because they will need your attention less,
I've
because
heard
they
that
will,
before.
you know. On the other hand, once you switch to three, you realize that parents suddenly become a minority. It's two against three. So, in your arms, in your arms, in your arms. Sorry, I can't, things like that. So, just my two cents.
Yeah, I've got a friend who has 3 kids, and she said when the third one came along, everything had to change. The car, the types of vacations, I forget the name of the car she has, but it's got like, is it two rows in the back or maybe a third row? And if they go skiing, everything is calculated to like, the smallest like centimeters so that everything can get added, yeah. I don't know if I
Yeah.
could do that.
Oh, yeah. It's wow. It's that it's funny, because we stopped using, how do you call that, Pampers?
Diapers?
Yeah, diapers.
Yeah. Or nappies in the UK, yeah.
Exactly. On November the 11th, after 11 years of 2011, of 2011, of
11
11 11 11,
years.
after 11 years of diapers, because of 5 kids. I mean, one, and then two, three, four. Oh, talking about how to fill your car when you go on vacation is like half the car is diapers and friends.
And all the
So
accessories.
So our liberation date was the 11th of November 2011, basically.
Wow.
Because
I could.
logistics suddenly became so easy. Like no prams, no diapers, and this is very volumetrically, you know.
So, because you also do estate planning, and so I'm very interested to know, like, I don't want to know your personal details, but I think people listening would also be interested to know how to think about estate planning when with regards to Bitcoin, because like you mentioned multi-sig earlier, but it's not just, you go to the notaire or a lawyer and you just type up whatever and that's it. Like there are other considerations to have in place.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is that the Bitcoin advisor is not a financial advisor. We're like, you
Okay.
could say, a super tech support,
Oh yeah, okay.
something like that, where we are only
Yeah.
holding one of the client's keys.
Okay.
So
Okay.
basically, our solution, which has been existing for 9 years now,
Yep.
is a collaborative security service where basically the client cannot lose the coins. How? Is that we understand the difference between the single point of failure as we usually consider it, meaning more of a technical point of failure, whereas in reality, the single point of failure, Saida, is you and me. And
Mm-hmm.
regardless of whether you are an expert or a noob, if something happens to you personally, who are probably the only person in the family able to handle your, hardware wallet and single sig or self-directed multi-sig, by the way, your coins will be in danger. Also because the standard multi-sig is a two of three, where
Mm-hmm.
the user controls two keys and the multi-sig provider holds the extra key.
So
So,
I'm going to stop you for 1 second
yeah,
for so someone is brand new, they stumble upon this podcast, they
yes,
hear keys, coins, multi-sig. Can you do just
yes,
a brief definition of what this is so that people can get a sense of what it
yeah,
actually means?
of course, of course. So, Bitcoin is a paradigm shift in many regards, and one of them is the introduction of individual responsibility. Meaning that in fiat, if you have a problem, I mean, fiat means where you are living now, dear listener.
Yeah.
Uh, if you have any problem, you can call your bank, your mayor, your government, or whatever. And by the way, your money in the bank is not there, is not yours, and it doesn't respond perfectly to the definition, the very definition of money. Whereas Bitcoin is money and it gives you the ability to be responsible for your wealth, meaning that it gives you a lot of freedom, but also a lot of responsibility and potentially risk. That if you
Mm-hmm.
lose it, you're in big issue. Um, so now, basically, now the way that you can handle your own key or be the real owner of it is by owning a key, which now it's a lot easier, by the way, than 10 years ago, where it was more complicated. Now you just need to remember or to write down or I mean, to not to lose 12 or 24 words,
Mm-hmm.
which comes from a list called BIP 39,
Mm-hmm.
um, which has been existing, I think, for now it's more than 10 years, I think. Huh?
Yep. And
Yeah.
Amir Taki, a man who lives in Switzerland, is the one who created, I do believe. Comment if I'm wrong, correct me, but Amir Taki is the one who came up with the concept of the BIP 39. So it's a list
Wow.
of words. And
Excellent.
so the key is basically, so with a traditional bank account, You've got your bank number if you want someone to send you a transfer. You've got your IBAN if it's international, or you've got Venmo or Twint that links to your bank account. And depending on where you are, you may not be able to access your bank account directly. You might have to go through your banking institution. With Bitcoin, it's really trippy when you think about it, but thanks to BIP 39, there is a string of words that represent your private key, like data, that actually gives you control to sign transactions that are related to whatever quantity of coins related to that key or to that wallet. So if you lose that, you lose access to your coins.
Exactly, because although you could say 12 words sounds like easy to crack, where it's not like that because it's basically virtually impossible that anyone, including quantum computing or whatever,
Yeah.
can can guess them because the number of probabilities that somebody guesses your those 12 words is equal to the number of atoms in the universe, which is 10 to the 77th.
So it's hard.
Yeah, that's a lot of zeros. So, on the other hand, if you lose it, as you said, it's a problem. So,
Yeah.
how do you mitigate that? So, to
Yeah.
move your coins, you need to sign the transaction with that. And so, you can now introduce the concept of multi-sig, which means that you won't need one, but you would need two keys to sign, for example. Out of a quorum, I mean a total of three keys. And as I said before, the standard multi-key is Saida has two keys and Unchained has the third one. If something sadly happens to Saida, two keys are
Touch wood.
lost.
Yeah.
Touch wood. But we're all going to die, so people
Yeah.
are thinking about that. So that's
If
also
something
why
happens to Saida in 60 to
in
70
60
years.
years, of course, I mean, in 120 years. In fact,
Yeah.
that's why our average age, the average age of our clients is 50, 60, 70.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
oldest clients is 88.
Oh,
So
well
this is an
done.
age where you have to think, I mean, by by default, you start thinking about the what happens after you.
Hmm.
So what the Bitcoin Advisor introduces since 2016 is that taking into account that risk, that single point of failure risk, the Bitcoin Advisor holds one of the client's keys, meaning that in the group of participants, you have Saida has one, the Bitcoin Advisor has one, and Theia, in our case at the moment, or Unchained, so the
Yeah.
tech provider hold the third one, meaning like if you lose your key, you can still activate the other two,
Yep.
and everything starts from the 2FA of your account.
Hmm.
So those extra two keys cannot talk to one another,
Okay.
but you are the only participant, let's say, of the quorum that can activate the other two. So if something happens to you
In 70 years, yes.
in 120 years from now, um, so now your beneficiaries will be able to activate the other two keys, or thanks to the estate plan,
Yes.
get access to that key and to the information of all the keys. So in the end, it's a very simple, straightforward, and robust
Hmm.
document that you can, as a client, decide to have us keep a copy of, because again, it just gives access to one key, so not to the Bitcoin,
Yeah.
you know. And then you can make as many copies as you want, and you can hand it to uh, your attorney. So by the way, determining the power of attorney is part of
Hmm.
what you have to consider when you make an estate plan. Of course, you need to have a will.
Yeah.
That's number one. And inside the will, you will introduce this document. And
So,
yeah, and
so
the
let's
other,
say, oh,
yeah,
go
so
ahead. I'm sorry.
not just that maybe the next question is yeah, what do you have to consider, for a nested plan protocol? And part of the thing is um, to make sure that the tax outcomes are efficient. So this will maybe depend on your own jurisdiction, but on that aspect, as I said before, the Bitcoin advisor is not an actual advisor. So we just hand you the document, so the estate plan protocol, and then it's your responsibility to manage it.
Yeah. Switzerland doesn't have capital gains taxes, but there is a wealth tax that's relatively small. And so on December 31st, year end, you have to report whatever Bitcoin holdings you may or may not have. But so let's say I decide, because I know in 70 years, my number will be up. I decide to go with a multi-sig solution like this for estate planning. Do I still have ultimate control over my keys? Like, do I need to consult you, or do I need to consult Unchained, for example, before transacting?
Yeah, so yes and no, meaning that you are sovereign, so you can recover everything by yourself. But um, part of the security that we provide
Mm-hmm.
is that we want to make sure that the person that makes the transaction is you or your beneficiary.
Okay.
This means that our policy is the following. If you want to move more than 1% of your stack, we
1%.
organize, yeah, so if your transaction is 0.5% of your stack, when you see that you have signed the transaction with your key, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
you want to make a transaction, we will just sign it, no questions asked. If it's more than 1%, we organize a video call to make sure it's
Okay.
Saida or your husband when in 120 years time.
Okay,
So
so
this
that's the
is
verification.
basically this delay, if you want, this extra layer of security maybe makes the things slower, but it adds security because
Yeah,
when we have a client who asks for a very urgent transaction, that's usually kind of a red flag.
of course.
It's a potential, a social engineering scam or something. So we just ask questions. If the client, says shut up and sign, we're happy to do that. But by just asking simple questions,
Mm-hmm.
we saved several clients from going chasing yield on Celsius and stuff like that.
You guys must have a lot of stories. Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But actually, we have plenty, sadly, of sad stories, meaning that saying that, okay, in the end, collaborative multi-sig is kind of an extra ego test that you have to pass,
yeah.
meaning that once that you understand how to handle your coins, you tend to dismiss non-self-directed multi-sig because you say,
Mm-hmm.
third parties, I have to trust them and so forth. But you can't imagine the capacity that people have to muck up their setup with just stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
Maybe it happens quite often, actually, no problem, that people don't write correctly the 12 words on the piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's just one
Yeah.
is not, or maybe they forgot that it was just to make sure they inverted maybe from the 12th to the first one, or they just forget and they punch potential lose the account. So it's very easy in the end, especially if you project yourself in 20, 30 years or 120 years, like in your case. Um, Like imagine like remembering where you store your keys or your hardware wallet. Maybe it's not, it's just bricked, or a lot can happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
So
is
we, by the way, on that aspect, say that we make a regular safety check, sanity check of the
sanity
keys.
check.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I
Okay,
mean now,
let's do some
no,
role playing.
yeah, okay.
Let's do a role play.
No,
Okay,
no.
I would like to do a sanity check. I actually really need a sanity check. Okay, sanity check. Here we go.
You look crazy.
Yeah, exactly. No, but seriously, what is a sanity check?
No, no, no. Basic. Okay, I'm not gonna go into the detail, but now actually it's super easy with. So going back to the Bitcoin advisor, one of our modes is this. Let's call it 1+1+1 multi-sig. Another one would be to say that we are platform agnostic, meaning that back in the day we used to work with Nunchuck.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
we love the guys, but since the HQ is in Southeast Asia, we said, maybe there's a slight political risk or something like that. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's not even true anymore, but that was the basic reasoning behind it. So we went to Unchained, and we still work with Unchained, by the way, but mainly on the USA IRA side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And now, for about 1 year or something, we've been working with Theia. And
Yeah.
Theia, I think, is a game changer, meaning that it signals the maturation of the multisig space, where you can officially say that multisig is now easier than setting up a single SIG hardware wallet. So literally in 10 minutes, your vault is ready to receive funds with a QR code or standard copy pasta address. And going back to the sanity check of the key, you'd basically go into the app and you click on, maybe I have it here on my phone.
You click on "Are you crazy?" Yes, no. Dice roll. Yes, I'm crazy.
Exactly. So you have the Theia logo here.
Yep.
Okay. So I authenticate myself with the Face ID. So I go into my vault, key management. So health check, last checked X weeks ago. So can I show this?
You might
I
not
think
want to show.
yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
You might not want to show.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. I mean,
just-
this, they just the name of the of my of one of my vaults. You have health check. You have export key. So I do health check, perform health check, Face ID. It's performing the health check, and now it confirms that my key is healthy.
oh, I see. Okay.
So basically, you don't even know to know more. Then you can do your own research and check out where this means. But what I'm saying is that now that the space is maturing, that the
Yeah.
world is moving basically into hyper-Bitcoinization, one of the conditions for hyper-Bitcoinization, a bit like the internet back in the day, is that anybody can use it safely. So the first users of the internet were geeks, same for Bitcoin, and marginal people,
Yeah.
drugs,
I'm not.
cocoa.
I'm marginal. I'm a marginal person.
Oh, yeah, I told you that you look crazy.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's just.
ATIQ psychopath.
Yeah.
And so basically now it's just that you're not going to lose your Bitcoin. Then I'm not saying that it's the panacea.
Hmm.
I'm just saying that there are no solutions, that there are only trade-offs, and
Exactly.
I think that our solution is an exceptional one. Just
Yeah.
shilling my my parroquia, but
So it's a two or three multi-sig setup. Let's say you
yes.
have five kids. Um, how do you foresee managing that? Like, let's say you have many children, they're all adults. At a certain point, would you consider giving each one, like changing the multi-sig setup so that each child has like some sort of control over the Bitcoin, or do you still keep that in your will so that it's, 120
Yes.
years later when you pass on, they can
Yeah, I
access
would
it?
say that there are several solutions. So one very straightforward one would be that in the estate plan protocol, you you stipulate, or in the will, you stipulate I gave 20% of my coins to each. And then the attorney, together with the Bitcoin advisor, will make sure that each kid maybe has their own address ready to
Hmm.
send 20% of each. That's an example. Then probably going forward, the Bitcoin advisor will integrate some sort of a, Liana miniscript
Yeah.
that's on Bitcoin Core, time delay stuff where maybe you can have decaying or an increasing number of keys. So this will all be up to the client discussing with us what their best setup is. But this isn't in the future, and it's not in the concrete cards yet.
Yeah. And then you have to consider tax considerations as well, depending
Of
on your
course.
jurisdiction. Can you imagine like a scenario where, I don't know, one child decides to move to Switzerland, another child moves to a jurisdiction with like 50, like France or something, with a lot of wealth tax or inheritance tax. And you have like the same family living in different places, receiving equal amounts of Bitcoin, and then just the tax treatment being
The
totally
net, the
different.
net will be very different. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, maybe the other brothers will say, "I told you so."
Yeah. And there would be another war. That's I think of different multi-sig solutions from multiple perspectives, because I guess if someone has been in this space for a while, like, do you see scenarios where people decide, I don't know, X percent of the Bitcoin that you have will go into like estate planning for older Bitcoiners, or multi-sig setup for inheritance, and then they keep its stash for themselves? Like, do you see a lot of that, or do you see as people mature that they just want everything to be sort of covered legally for their kids?
Well, the first questions will be, do you have kids? Meaning that
Yeah.
the objective of our clients is primarily the thinking about what will come after them. And after them typically come other people. In general, the beneficiaries tend to be the family.
Yeah.
And some just say, I have no kids, but I just want to make sure that when I retire, the coins are still there.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So these, I would say, are the two main cas de figure.
Yeah, cas de figure. And so this setup, it applies for families, but I imagine as well that it also applies for companies.
It does.
Um, and so I think that companies are still relatively slow to adopting Bitcoin, besides MicroStrategy and a handful of others. But I think that, in the coming maybe 10 years or so, we'll see more and more. Have you guys sort of ventured into that sort of customer segment yet with companies and multi-sig setup? Or is it still like primarily wealthy individuals?
Yeah, yeah. So the service is perfectly suitable for companies. I would say maybe more for PMEs, because
Hmm.
maybe like large companies will look for solutions more, regulated,
Yeah, yeah,
certified, multi-stratum, stuff like that. But we'll see. But I mean, the Bitcoin advisor could also participate into that in the future. But what's immediately implementable for SMEs is that, consider, for example, an SME where you have the CEO, the CFO. I mean, several people involved, where you say maybe I need more keys, like maybe a 3 or 5 or something like that. We
Yeah,
say
or like a board
no,
member or yeah.
yeah, and we say no because more keys invites more risk because it's just an extra complexity. So you can still keep a two of three where maybe you can say, okay, the company has one key, so the client has
Hmm.
one key,
Hmm.
but to make sure that the CFO doesn't escape with the coins,
He goes
we
crazy
say
and boom.
we say that maybe the CEO has uh, the key and the CFO has um, a clone of it. So in the end, it would just be one key split into two. I mean, one full key split into two.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so in this case, so of course it helps if there's a lot of trust inside the company, but there again, there can be agreements up front between the client and the Bitcoin advisor saying,
Hmm.
if only the CEO shows up and saying, please urgently transfer 100% of the coins. No. So maybe, you can just say, we before signing transaction, we need two people of the company
Yeah.
sitting next to each other or whatever. I mean, this can be extremely, there's a whole array of possibilities there in order that the coins are secure and nobody runs into issues.
So on the website, it says that there are, I think it's 1 billion of assets under management
Yes.
for a relatively small team, according to the website. How do you
Yeah.
guys stay humble? This is a question that I'm asking my guests more and more frequently. How do you stay humble and grounded, knowing that you're so early in something that's absolutely huge?
I agree that going forward, especially if you consider that the fee structure is in sats, denominated in sats and not in fiat, the price of fiat doesn't even matter anymore.
Hmm.
Um, it's just, I think, if you look at the list of the Bitcoin advisors, you see that there are massive Bitcoiners there, and it's all people who I guess made long a long journey and
Hmm.
are ready to the other side of the barrier. For example, Chris uh, is one advisor who has most or if not all of his coins with us. He sold 17,000 hardware wallets,
Oh, wow.
uh, and he doesn't even know the price of Bitcoin.
Sweet. That's
And I
Nirvana.
think that's
Yeah.
quite the next step because I couldn't say I'm there yet.
So I'm just going to the website.
Yeah.
Chris's wallets, which I think I remember seeing his profile. Which wallet did he create?
No, he didn't create any. He used to have a website
Uh huh.
that sold them, so he had partnerships with all the legit hardware wallets
Oh, okay.
that
Oh, yeah,
I mean that you
Chris
could think of.
Pavlicek. Yeah.
The Pavlovsky, yeah. So this also gives you an idea of the legitimacy somehow of a solutions where he's really, really very much into security.
Yeah.
But after deep due diligence that he made back in the day about the Bitcoin Advisor solution, he just opted in because he realized the value of our service. And of course, all of the advisors are also. I mean, we have our coins within. We put our sats where our money is,
Yeah.
our mouth is. Sorry.
So is there if someone is listening to this, is there like a minimum number of coins that as sort of like an entry point to be eligible for a multi-sig process? Or I guess another way to say this is, at which point should an individual or a family consider this type of solution?
Yeah, so yeah, you could say that the two way to put your question, I mean, you could bundle them into one single question, which is was the minimum. There's no
Try to be diplomatic,
Yeah,
but you're right. What's the minimum?
go for it, no problem. We're between 80 IQ psychopaths here, so no problem. So
Yeah.
this is, I guess, a moving target because we used to say zero point 0.5 Bitcoin just to break the unit bias, so just
Okay.
inferior to one. Having said that, now if you have zero point 0.1, for example, if you have zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, uh, and we know that zero point 0.1 Bitcoin in, I don't know, 20 or 30, imagine in 30 years from now, zero point 0.1 Bitcoin will be maybe $3 million or something. I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
So why not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Saida, is that what I suggest, we have a partnership program where we say, please test the thing because once you test it, you realize it's it it's a game changer, meaning that I just send you an invite email. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, you sign the TOS, the terms of service. I send you the invite email. You click on the magic link. You download the app where you choose the Bitcoin Advisor Multisig. You connect your key that can be your Trezor, your cold card, your ledger, your passport, or your iPhone as a soft key. So it's just basically a few
Yeah.
seconds. Then you click to generate the key that will be held by the Bitcoin Advisor.
Yeah.
And then an extra click, and you create the key that will be held inside the app. So by Theia, let's say. And it's done.
Wow.
You have nothing else to do.
I have to play with Thea. I've heard it come up now quite a few times, so it's officially on my radar, and I have to look into it more. But I feel, how do I say this? Like old in the Bitcoin space, because when I first started to learn about it in 2017, it was all about, like, I have a cold card, for example, air gapping, not touching the internet.
Yes.
One of the key sort of learnings at that time for me was the difference between a hot wallet and a cold wallet, and, like, solutions where nothing is connected to the internet. And so, like, I'm listening to you and it makes perfect sense. And I'm assured that the security is in place, but I'm just going through my mind, and I'm just like, wow, things, like you say, are evolving so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree on that. And I would say the same for myself. Uh, but then when you think about what you can have the most secure key,
Mm-hmm.
but if something happens to you,
Mm-hmm.
all that security, it becomes useless because
And my
who is
child will
going,
hate me for the rest of her life.
for example, for example, so I think that it's really important to differentiate between the nature of a risk and
Yeah.
the likelihood for it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So again, we lost zero coins or zero sats in 9 years. We only do that. We don't even have a marketing budget, meaning that we exclusively think about security.
Nice. That's
And
very
the
good.
conclusion is the simpler, the better. So even as I said before, 3 of 5 introduces complexity, i.e. risk. So two
Yeah.
of three,
And you're done.
and you go to sleep.
Yeah. Soundly.
And by the
So,
way, yeah, yes, sorry, just to to bundle up my pitch here is that um, so you have the ego test.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not because you understand Bitcoin that the ego test is finished. So you say, okay, multi-sig. Huh? And the other thing is that you realize once you're inside what peace of mind means.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is that if you handle your own key, you cannot afford to be completely, to completely forget about it because you always know where the key is, where the 12 words are, maybe in that house, in that country, or whatever. Whereas now that I'm in a client myself for the Bitcoin advisor, I know what going back to the oblivious, you know, peace of mind means. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you go back somehow, sorry, to ignorance is bliss, something like that. You can relax
Mm-hmm.
because you know that nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah. I hear that.
And this is really precious, also because the bandwidth that you invest into not forgetting your key, it eats up the your time, which is the scarcest resource.
Yeah, of course. So, is there, playing devil's advocate, is there a risk that, with that level of nirvana where you're not stressed or worried about your key, that you may become complacent and actually, I don't know, maybe even forget how to build and broadcast a transaction or something?
Yeah, so I hear your question, but I wouldn't go to that level of obliviousness because because you're probably going to go on using Bitcoin in general,
Hmm.
that maybe even with the wallet of Satoshi or I don't know what.
Yeah,
So
on
you
Nostr, Zaps.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So since you are a Bitcoiner somehow, you're going to interact with plebs
Hmm.
and with the network all the time. And also, we strive in building up a relationship with the Bitcoiner and their family on a
Hmm.
one-to-one. So we call each other from time to time, to check how things are. And maybe we send them emails to keep them updated on where we're at and so forth. So yeah, I would say that the kind of risk that you mentioned is quite remote.
Yeah. That's
Like
good to
like
know.
for like the extreme of your question would be forget that you have Bitcoin.
I mean, you know, I could foresee a life or a stretch of time where you just live your life, you kind of forget, you stop paying attention to certain things, and 5 years later you wake up, or 10 years later you wake up, and you're like, oh, this is great. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, this is yeah. The best performing portfolios are for the dead and people who just forgot they had the portfolio.
yeah,
That is true, and it's
yeah.
probably the same for Bitcoin, by the way.
I
It's the same.
uh, a few years ago I downloaded Moon Wallet because I liked at that time I tried out new products that came on the market, and I think I don't know I had like the equivalent of, let's say, fiat, 50 Swiss francs on it. And I had totally forgotten that, that I had downloaded the wallet, and I switched phones. A lot of things happened, and I found the keys, and I'm like, hey, what is this? And I went back to it. And I mean, like, it wasn't a lot, but I was like, wow, there is beauty in just forgetting about something for a few years and coming back to it. And you're like, whoa, this is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, I saw also on your Twitter bio, sorry, that you're also head of the relay squad.
Yes,
Yes. So, how's that? How's the relationship? How did you hook up with Relay? Because they are Swiss based as well.
exactly. So I became a client of Relay in 2020, or just when it appeared on the market.
Mm-hmm.
and I started interacting with the guys, with Arsene at the beginning, the meme sensei. I
Yeah.
like memes, by the way. You're not
Yeah,
gonna ask
okay.
about me, I mean about my memes, but I love doing memes because I think that they're fundamental somehow.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, they explain in one image 1,000 words, and we know that
Yeah.
Bitcoin needs a lot of explaining, and also because I think that it kind of de-dramatizes the depth and the revolution, the 100% revolution that Bitcoin is. So you could really become like somehow crazy if you think about how it's gonna disrupt everything. So memes add a touch of lightness,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, so coming back to us, so I interacted with the relay. So now they have a squad, which is a group now of about 60 people or 80 people who are voluntarily participating in beta tests or
Oh,
sharing
nice.
thoughts on the Telegram group and things like that. And Relay tends to tap into that group when they intend to expand the team. And now that Mika is in
Yeah.
there, and Relay is organizing to expand into the European market. They are, hiring more and more.
Hmm.
And let's say, I was kind of promoted squad leader recently. I think mainly because of my hyperactivity on social media.
Yeah. I knew
So it
that
was
social media would be this one day, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So, I mean, it was just a way to, I guess, to acknowledge my proof of work. So, but
yeah.
is but this is about it for the moment. But it's of course ça fait plaisir.
Oui, 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 c'est clair. I met Julian at a conference a year ago or 2 years ago, and when I was organizing meetups here at Geneva, I begged him to come and present, and he did, and he was very kind and generous with his time because he had to take the train to give a presentation to a room filled with about, I don't know, maybe there were like 30 or 40 of us. Because I've noticed that in Geneva, crypto events, broadly speaking, or Web3 or NFTs, will draw in more people than Bitcoin only because there's no like sex appeal to Bitcoin only. Whereas if you tap into the whole,
What are you saying, Saida? No,
I'm
yeah, I
not
get.
speaking for myself,
Yeah,
just,
of course.
like market sentiment, if you will. But if you do something that's like Web3 and you talk about design and stuff, people will come. I don't go, but it seems to draw in a bigger crowd. So Julian was really kind to come and present to the small group of us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean the relay team is really special, I think. Maybe because Swiss are well educated in general. I mean, very pleasant to interact with. They're hardworking, always
Yeah,
positive.
yeah.
They're true Bitcoiners. They had to bend the knee somehow to Mika, and that was a bit frustrating for everybody. But it is what it is. So yeah,
I had I think it was maybe 2021 that I downloaded the Relay app and I used it to DCA for a while. But then when I think it was October 31st, it changed where you had to KYC everything. And I took a pause because I was like, what does this mean? Like, I've never actually said this before in a podcast, but I feel as though I'm at a moment now where I am sort of at a crossroads between what I believe Bitcoin to be and what the reality is, and figuring out how to navigate that in terms of like KYC for certain amounts, no problem. But where is this heading in the future? Like, I feel less certain about how things will play out over the next 10 years than I used to when it was still for the super marginalized people.
yeah, I 100% agree with you. I had the same reaction. Also, knowing the people,
Yeah.
it felt almost like treason.
Yeah.
Of course, I understood the underlying reasons
Hmm.
for that compliance that they have to go through, because they have to they want to participate into peak clownland, which is Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, I made that meme where you have the Superman guy choosing between the two red buttons
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
is competitiveness or
Yeah.
regulation.
Yeah.
And Europe is talking about competitiveness, but is only doing regulation. So, and
Yeah.
but going back to your thought is very interesting, because I'm going through the same. I think, like many other people, that you have the idealistic,
Yeah.
hubris, whatever, and then you have the fiat reality, where before I said, and this is maybe the first time I say it as well, that you have maybe you and I are outside the matrix mentally, but
Yeah. But
physically and
physically,
operationally we're still in clownland. So
that is
we
so true.
uh, we have to just be honest about what's going on
Yeah.
around us, and try not to be too radical about it. And but there again, Bitcoin remains unconfiscatable. So if something really radical happens, you can still go away with your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, right?
I'd have to
So
swim to the bottom of Lac Léman to retrieve my key,
yeah,
come up to the
same
top,
here.
and then I could leave.
Yeah, yeah, I heard you lost it too. Yeah, sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and what you say about Europe is very true. And I'm not going to ask your take, although if you have like an informed opinion, I'd love to hear it. But I think about how Switzerland, you know, will react or not with all of the stuff that's going around in Europe. Like how much longer can Switzerland remain like a safe space, so to speak?
Wow, this is a fascinating question, because you could argue that during World War II in particular, Switzerland managed to remain Switzerland and neutral and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why not now? Then the fiscal paradise stuff, in the late 90s, I think it was, started to crack that Swiss exceptionalism,
Yeah.
but that was within the fiat matrix, logics. Um, because now in the end, your Bitcoin is Switzerland. You have a little Switzerland in your phone or in your head.
Yeah.
So that's not a real issue anymore somehow. And then I think that the way that the political organization is I mean, it is functions in Switzerland, I think that it's very robust politically, socially, and so forth. So I'm really optimistic, as for the little I know about Switzerland, that it will go on being an exceptional country. Then, of course, the Swiss francs is also a shitcoin, which is
Hmm.
dying a bit slower than others,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
almost including the USD itself, by the way. It's probably the two strongest uh, political currencies in the world. But they have their goal. I have no doubt that they're going to stack sats at a federal level. And meanwhile, it's one of the countries in the world which is the most, uh, you know, pro business,
Yeah.
including
Yeah.
Crypto Valley and things like that. And so I think that the transition into Bitcoinization, look at Lugano,
Yeah. Of course.
will be smoother and more rapid in Switzerland than in other countries, which is interesting, because usually we say that we get Bitcoin based on needs, but Switzerland just is getting it, just being intellectually honest. I
That's a good
think
point.
it's an intellectually honest country, I think.
Yeah. And I wonder as well. If I consider the timing, I think it was in 2007 or 2008, the Swiss banking secret officially like went away. And so I wonder if that too didn't influence some people here to be curious and to be open towards other solutions.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. It wasn't the late 90s, it was the late 2000s, maybe.
Yeah, I remember getting a phone call from my banker saying, like, you have to come in and just sign a document saying that you're not American. Okay, I don't have a lot of money at all, but it was like, it was just the policy. And I remember thinking, whoa, this might be a big deal because, it's not like I had an appointment and, by the way, sign this. It was really like, you must come and say that you're not American because we don't want any liabilities on our books
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. This makes me think of when you go into an airport such as the Venice airport, you have like non-US.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, like there is an exceptionalism there again between the US and the rest of the world, which is you say, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So, the last thing I wanted to ask you about was this the fungi article that you have pinned
yes.
um, to your Twitter. I keep saying Twitter, to your X profile.
Twitter is
Um,
fine.
uh, Twitter is
Twitter is
fine.
okay, Saida.
Can you explain that? Like, I guess, like an overview of mushrooms and Bitcoin. Like, what
Yeah,
could the connection be?
yeah. So the reason why I pinned it, by the way, the pin is when the mushroom starts fruiting. It's called a
Okay.
pin. That it came into my mind now. So the reason why I pinned the mushroom article is that I know a thing or two about mushrooms. I'm talking about hallucinogen. I mean,
Hallucinogenics?
yeah.
Hallucinogenics. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about mushrooms in general, about the fungi world in general, because I used to grow oyster mushrooms on coffee grounds that I picked up in Italian bars.
Oh, wow.
And that was because, like, 20, 25 years ago, without understanding anything about how things work, I realized that the way things are going, the world cannot function, you know? So I was looking for something that would put business, because we need business for the world to go on,
And trade.
and
Yeah.
the environment, because the world needs trade and the environment. I mean, the environment meaning the environment also is stupid because we are inside it, you know? So nature, let's say, nature in general, like how can you be grounded into reality and nature while doing trading without destroying the biosphere? That was a little bit my ideal, my search. And I found the magic land of mushrooms, which they have been existing for 1.3 billion years, meaning like 6 times older than plants, for example.
Yeah.
And you say, why, why so? Why are they still thriving after 1.3 billion years? I'll just open and close the parenthesis of business and nature, saying that they're very easy to grow. So just time they grow. They're very healthy, meaning that when they don't kill you, they make you stronger. So you
Yeah.
have some mushrooms that destroy your liver, and others that make you stronger in general.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, on you have the reishi mushroom. It's present on 3 of the 7 doors of the Beijing, and the Forbidden City.
Oh, okay.
Or the same reishi, the emperor mushroom, is present on the back of the throne of the emperor, because it's a protecting all powerful stuff. So Then I coordinated a 0 kilometer, a local farmers market where I would sell little boxes where people could self-grow their mushrooms and stuff. So
Nice.
this is where it was, business plus nature, although it was really, really modest. So going back to us, why this pin tweet is because this thing so you have animals, minerals, plants, and mushrooms. So it's a whole reality in itself.
I would have
So
thought plants and mushrooms were the same thing. So to tell
they,
you
they,
how I
yeah,
know
they, they,
very
they
little about
actually
mushrooms.
they actually feed themselves more like we do than
Hmm.
plants do. Um, so why still thriving after 1.3 billion years? It's because it's anti-fragile, it's
Hmm.
decentralized, so it uses new information to reinforce itself. um, it grows by, let's say, yeah. In a nutshell, you could say it's decentralized and anti-fragile. Then it's much more than that. But this is why,
Yeah.
after 1.3 billion years, it's still there and still thriving. Inside of us, we are made of mushrooms, of fungi as well. I
Yeah.
don't know if you realize that. So they basically create also symbiosis with their environment in a win-win situation. So they create win-win situations for their own benefit,
Yeah.
and their own benefit reinforces the network. So it's absolutely fascinating.
I see
Yeah.
the connection.
Yeah.
And this will be the most ludicrous question that I'll ask ever, I think. 1.3 billion years. What will one Satoshi buy whoever is existing on this planet in 1.3 billion years? Can you imagine?
You mean what one Satoshi can buy 1.3 billion years from now?
Yeah, like a house,
Like a planet or something.
like a planet, like, can you
Yeah,
imagine?
because I think that at a certain point, that it's like the pizza, it's infinitely divisible. So in 1.3 billion years, probably we will be in billionth of a sat,
Hmm.
the subdivision. So one whole Satoshi will be like a lot more than one Bitcoin now, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. And it moves very quickly.
Oof.
Very, very quickly. When I was looking at I don't know, some table that showed, how much Bitcoin people were mining in like 2011, and there was a guy who was like, "Yeah, I'm only pulling in, I don't know, like 5 Bitcoin a day or something." And it's like, "Whoa."
Yeah, but I was thinking about that, and I think it's a trap, meaning, okay, we know that at the beginning was a peer-to-peer cash, so people would just maybe mine it and spend it or lose it because it was worth zero, so
Yeah,
no big
who
deal.
cares?
And then 10 years after was, oh no. But think about the risk adjusted. Uh, I mean, now it would make sense for me to put 100% of my net worth into Bitcoin, everything that I don't need in the short term and so forth.
Yeah.
10 years back, maybe I would have put like 10% in it because the risk of survival or whatever, blood
Hmm.
wars, and it was higher. The
Yeah.
survival risk was higher. So that would divide by 10 your overall performance if you think about it. I mean, how many people were crazy enough to put 100% of their net worth into something into Bitcoin like 10 I mean, and hodl, by the way.
And hodl and not lose your key. Yep, yep.
Yeah, so maybe Max Kaiser, maybe Satoshi. I mean, not many more. And
I
all
mean,
the rest is
Satoshi's
like,
coins, you can still look at them there.
yeah,
Whether he has the keys to them, or whether he or she, they still exist, I don't know, but you can still see them.
yeah. And just closer to us, you come back to the example of Amazon, where except Bezos and a couple of others. nobody held the
Yeah.
stock from the beginning to now. So why? So in that sense, we can really forgive ourselves,
Hmm.
realize that it's still super early, and your listeners need to understand this. This is one of the many paradoxes of
Yeah.
Bitcoin. By the way, I'm writing a book
Oh, great.
which will be called the Bitcoin Paradox. Is that uh, the trap is saying, "Oh no, it used to you know to cost 5/10 of a cent to buy a Bitcoin. Now it's 80K." And but the other side of the coin is that like maybe what 2% of humans hodling some. So we're still very early. Now the question is, how long will be early?
Yeah.
This is another question. I'm the, I can't answer that question. Every
No.
day is less early, but we're
Yeah.
still early.
But we're still early. Well, with that, we're going to close out the interview portion before doing 21 questions. This is a separate clip. Stefan, can you tell people where to find you on social media, where to find Bitcoin advisors?
Yes. So on Twitter, where I'm very active, especially in the English speaking space, I'm in Noof Smith. Maybe you can see it
Yep.
here,
Yeah.
Nouf Smith. Same on Nostr. Then you can find me at thebitcoinadvisor.com/Stefan to book a call to secure your coins forever. Like Saida, this includes you. I invite you to book a call with me and we can
In a broken German or French or English or Spanish or
whatever you prefer.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keys, 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 keys. Yeah. Man like quite. Man like who? Yeah. Takes a Bitcoin off exchanges under self-custody. She runs her own node, providing liquidity. Yeah, she got her own keys. She got her own keys. She got her own keys. Yeah, she got her own keys. 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 Yeah, she got her own keys. Keys, keys.